careful there. That's right. One more button press. Good evening, everybody popping in. See if we can spot this afternoon. Like a Ringling Ilya. Sorry, I gotta pull up the pencil. Alright, where did I leave off? Of course, how's the Ringling life? Treating you. Oh, did you leave Ringling? I left a little over a year ago. I'm in Virginia. Took a spot up here. It's a tenure track research position, so yeah, it's hard to kind of turn that down, especially in my area. That sort of thing never appears. So I left here at the end of the 2023 year. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, at Virginia Commonwealth University. In their communication arts department, which is kind of a blend of illustration, entertainment arts, and kind of visual effects, some game stuff. It's kind of a mix of different things, but I think I only met you in person once at Ringling. I think I had left something in the classroom or something. Oh, okay. Where did you go? Yeah, well, I kind of got there, in the fall of 2019, and I was teaching in the design area, mostly hanging out with motion designers, so I didn't make it over to illustration stuff too much. But que сожалению. Yeah, because I met up with George a little bit. The Georges, I guess. There's two main Georges over there, and Sean Murray. But Anything good? Like concept art or production or... It's been a bit of a volatile market lately. The game stuff. But, oh, cool. Well, you know, if you ever need any concept art, I got lots of time. My research spot here, they want me to, you know, do professional activity, and I have 2 classes per semester here, so it's I get paid pretty much what I got paid at Ringling, and so it's like an 11-hour work week. I should start just looking around on my own, but character lead sounds like a fun gig, though. Yeah, it's pretty crazy because I teach less than a lot of adjunct faculty do here, and which is pretty unusual. Yeah, but still, yeah, it depends on what you're working on. Like, as much as people complain about crunch, there was a time when, when people were making games, and they just loved making the game. Like, they didn't care how many hours they were putting in. They were just having fun doing what they were doing. I don't think crunch is a good idea, but people were, really passionate about the projects they were developing. And so that didn't matter as much when the studios were smaller and there was more individual control over the projects. Yeah. I only worked in a very limited fashion in studio in games before going to grad school. I do freelance and things from time to time, but I was only kind of in the studio situation. It was the exploratory phase of the project, so really didn't have any crunch involved. In fact, it was weird when I started working at the game studio. It was Avalanche Studios. They're more known for that Hogwarts game that came out. They just did that one, but they were a Disney studio. When I first started working with them, they were independent, but when I was full-time, they were a Disney place, and I'd gone from this local independent creative studio to this game studio, and they'd give us a project at the game studio and said, "Oh, can we have this done in a week or two?" And I was used to working at this illustration studio where they wanted it like yesterday. So it felt really weird kind of slowing down as much as I had to for the duration of the time I was there, because I was used to just working so fast. There's some crunch time in there too, with things being due the next morning or 2 days, and I had to stay up for like 30 hours at this illustration studio. They don't exist anymore. But it was a big transition. It was back in 2008, but it was still like yeah, of course. Всегда приятно, хотя не умею по-украински. Yeah, anybody pop in? As far as I can tell, no chat stuff's over there, so guess not yet. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody popping in. Good afternoon, everybody popping in. Yeah, as usual, let me know if there's any questions or if there's comments. I'm always willing for discussion. Just, usually I like to say, the way people kind of pop in and out of here, it makes it a little challenging to hold a conversation. I blame Zelta for that, personally. Is everyone familiar with the Infinite Painter app? How do I choose my colors? Usually I try to limit a little bit, and then there's kind of actually, let's see if it's in here. There we go. So that's kind of what I started with, and what I often do is do some kind of overlay layer. I also threw some textures on here. But basically there's a layer on top. See me turning on and off. And I set it to overlay as a mode, and then I can kind of start throwing color around. So I've kind of got purple and green and red and a little bit of blue in here, and then some other textures on top. Because I was looking for is, this inside of the forest feeling, and I've done a lot of paintings inside forests. So that's what I was thinking about in terms of my color was that. And then, if you want it during the daytime, well, you kind of got more naturalistic colors. It's a little needs to be tweaked back here a bit, but if that's what you're looking for, kind of more naturalistic colors, then you kind of start with what you want, and then kind of go from there. And then I tend to think about the light a lot. So, what's the color of the light? And what's the ambient color? So it's almost like a 3D approach where I'm aware of the influence that the different things in the scene have on everything else in the scene. So I try to put, green into the reflectable areas, like in the fur, the skin. And coming from the side and below, while from above it's going to be more of a blue effect. From the sky, maybe a little yellow from the sun. And so once you kind of have a general color layout, it helps me just think about where the light's coming from and how it impacts all the separate pieces. So that's more or less how I approach color and lighting. There's other ways of doing it, of course, more expressive ways, or really limiting that color palette down. If you look at like James Gurney, he's got his great books on color and light, and he talks a lot about kind of limiting your color palette to certain regions, and that kind of happens. Certain regions of the color wheel, and that kind of happens automatically for me if I pay attention to what's going on with the light. If I just kind of make a decision about what that light color is going to be and what the shadow color is going to be. And once I kind of got it basically laid out, I like to compact it down to one layer. So I just got one layer right here. The setup is multiple layers, but once I kind of got it where I want it, then it gets cut down a lot. But yes, that's what I got going on here. But yeah, I like this specific app for drawing in, just as it does some different things that other ones don't do. Like just that shortcut of me changing the opacity by sliding left and right with 3 fingers. Well, I did the initial with the color overlay, and then I flatten all the layers into one layer, and then it becomes a one layer picture. I have kind of a tradition of doing multi-layer paintings where each part of the light's treated separately, but I wanted to do some of these kind of more almost single layer paintings. So I've been kind of going, it's kind of how I originally trained myself to paint digitally, was with single layer, or mostly single layer paintings. So I kind of wanted to come back over to that a little bit more. And so this one, a number of other ones I've been doing lately, which I haven't posted on here. They are on my website. Have been done with the single layer approach. Hello. How's the life of the famous and popular animator? Yeah, well, it's kind of how I'm used to working with, say, oil paint, right? So, if I'm going outside to paint my landscape, or whatever, it's not like I have options for multiple layers. I have to do it all on one. But, if an artist is not suffering, are they actually working, right? Moho? Is that an app? Or the company? You should learn motion design. That's like a high in demand field for freelancers and contractors at the moment. Ah. I was in Blender this morning working on some concepts for this project. Nice pajama. If anyone wants a fuller view of the screen, it's being broadcast over on YouTube. Looks like my head's all in the dark though for some reason. Let's see if I can get it to reset itself to focus on the foreground. Guess not. Probably have to go into the camera settings or something. So this is part of my larger concept project. And actually, if I come back down to, well, here's the initial phase. Let's see, let's hide. It should be 100%. Where are they showing through? That's weird. Oh, that's right, because it needs to be a white background. That's why. There we go. So I was doing some creature concepts. And again, I like this app because the way you can draw shapes in here. Some of these I might come back to. Okay, I still kind of like this one down here. But I'm using, what I'm doing is this one up here. And then these are some tryouts on the design, so I went with this one. And there's the turnaround for it there. And then this is actually the life cycle. And but it's part of a larger concept project I've been developing for a while. And anyway, for the kind of realized there's stories I want to tell. Let's put some eggs in here. Where it's this concept project is basically humans have arrived and colonized this planet they call Bramble, and basically the planet looks like a giant tangle of branches, like a shrub almost floating in space. And anyway, I've been developing like environments and creatures and characters. Well, in that one, it's like more of magnetic rocks or whatever floating around. This is actually like plants, and but I guess that kind of world building might be the closest thing. But there we go. Now we can have some more obvious hatching coming out of these things. But I've been working on, I've been having some ideas for stories, and that's kind of helped me also focus my thoughts, so that for example, I want to have some kind of there's a story I have where I had a more complicated one that was more about life in the city there, but I've decided to simplify it since I've never done a comic before, and I kind of want to do a comic book based around this story. And so I've simplified it down a lot, but basically I have this these three people, they're going on an illegal excursion into one of the kind of the natural parks outside of their city, outside of their major colony. And they're there to see some of these ancient artifacts that they call totems that are scattered around the planet. They're kind of evidence of a former civilization, but there's no other remaining life or artifacts of it. So anyway, they go out to tour some of the ruined totems that are out there. And this the people that are going on the tour are this kind of father-daughter couple, and the daughter is very precocious and curious, and she kind of runs off into the forest. And so the tour guide who's with them illegally has got this time limit where she has to be back by a certain time, and these kids run off and they don't have that kind of time. And anyway, they need a predator that's going to hunt them in the forest. So this might be the one. I've played around with other ones too, but so I'm doing here is I'm treating this whole image as a life cycle. So you've got adults, you've got kind of smaller ones, mid-sized ones, and the eggs over here. And this one's going to be kind of planting an egg in the back with the tail. So they're kind of a parasitic predator. So they'll plant things in dead bodies or living ones, kind of like wasps. And so, because I've done life cycle where you just kind of show the animal's life cycle, but I thought it'd be more interesting to do it as an illustration, because I wanted to do illustrations of these creatures as it was anyway, kind of fully painted up as part of the portfolio project. And so here they are, eating their prey, they're planting some eggs. There's some babies running around. Yeah, maybe they don't really have to hunt the prey because maybe the eggs eventually hatch, which kills it. And they kind of get eaten from the inside out. So definitely a not the kind of predator you want to deal with at a personal level. Something's absolutely terrifying. Well, the idea of the portfolio is you're trying to show the work you want to do and that you're competent and consistent with it. And that it works with whatever studio you're applying for. So like, if you were going to work for Nintendo, this might not work, right? Because they might not like this kind of thing. From Mexico. Sadly, don't speak. No hablo español. Would like to learn, but I don't have time right now. Speak other languages, but not Spanish. Maybe one summer, one day, I can do like an intensive course somewhere in person. 1:35. And she got work in the morning. But so that's the big thing, is just showing that you can do the work, and that can mean all kinds of different things, right? So one of the things though that there's been in discussion a lot with concept artists right now, have a good night, is that there's kind of an over focus on what's called key art. This would kind of be maybe considered a key art piece if I were to really render this out, depending how far I go with it. But key art's basically super finished illustrations that show off some kind of hero shot. So you might see that kind of thing from Riot Games or Blizzard or kind of those kinds of studios. And really what they're looking for in concept art is solutions. So they need to, they're trying to get you to solve their problems through visual means. So they need to know how like a mechanic in a game is going to look visually, not just typing it out, but making it understandable in a visual way. And so the more that you can do that, the better. So if you just have like nice drawings of characters, that's really not enough. It's more, what does this character do? How do they do it? You know, what kind of expressions do they have? What are they like? You know, what's the story being told? Or if there's an environment, it's, you know, how do you engage with that environment? So maybe you have a nice painting of it, and then you show how things function within it. So there's like a way of unlocking a door or crossing a bridge or collecting things. That's really what they need to be able to see in a concept art portfolio. That's the kind of thing I actually work with my students at the university. I met quite a bit. Is I have a concept design drawing class, and yeah, well, that's what they do. Want to see like the essence of the scene in a full narrative way, so that like there's a story being told with the elements within it. So if you were to walk into that scene, you'd kind of know what it's for. So it's not just like a nice, pretty picture of a castle, but it's a castle that, you know, you are trying to get to or avoid, or there's something, some treasure inside, and you need to be able to know, oh, I need to go to that place. Because you can do a pretty illustration of it, but if it's not useful for the production end, then it's not really useful for anything. Kind of gets in the way. And then it needs to work in such a way that someone who's a production artist, someone who's like a 3D artist or an animator or a prop builder, or a programmer can look at it, understand how it works without any questions, and build it and make it work within the environment it has to work within. And that's true whether it's a movie or a game or whatever. So it helps to have like a specific project you're working on. So like with my students at the university, I give them a scenario, and we kind of slowly build up over the semester a bunch of different pieces for that. And it kind of eventually pulls together as actually a full portfolio for them that, you know, if they want to, they could take over their senior year and level it up and put it together and actually use it for application materials. So that's kind of the big thing. Is I think having a nice consistent portfolio. There's different ways of doing that. Kind of the classic one that people like to use for teaching is something similar to the Skillful Huntsman book, which if you get a copy of, that's a really handy resource. It's one of the earliest books on concept art, and it's written by Scott Robertson, who's a retired professor from Art Center. He's done a bunch of art books through Design Studio Press, but he had his students take a Grimm fairy tale, so any kind of fairy tale or folklore can work for this, and you concept out the locations and the characters and the equipment and the creatures for that, you know, showing how things work. So if they have a special axe, you know, what does that axe do? How does it function? How do you know what it does? You know, what do the characters look like? What's the setting? And so my class is sort of patterned on that. We don't use the fairy tale aspect, but a lot of that structure gets in there. And then they have to put everything together and finish drawings at the end. It's called The Skillful Huntsman. I think you can get a paperback. The Skillful Huntsman. I thought about actually taking my course materials because I have a teaching website. And I've been, teaching this course for my students at the university, and put it up on my own teaching website. I mostly have stuff on perspective and how to use that there, but I've made some updates to it this year that I think have been really good. And then I think it's pretty well organized, so I've thought about putting that up there as part of the course offerings, do a more finished edition. I could also use for my university students, could put inside of their course stuff. But so the teaching site, in case you haven't been over there, it's myartprofessor.com. And again, it's mostly perspective stuff. I need to finish the courses that I already kind of have. I've just been busy the last year or so. I used to do like a monthly thing up there, like a monthly little tutorial, which I haven't done in a while. But just trying to get back to being here. And also had a different project I was kind of distracted by the last year, which was turning my Nissan Xterra, so it's an SUV, into a mini camper, and it's basically done, so I'm excited about that being finished finally. To go landscape painting in and all the other things I like to do. So, and then I get to actually get to go display it. There's it's called overlanding, which is people who basically can drive their vehicles to remote locations and camp, and they have everything kind of contained on or within the vehicle. There's a big kind of convention for that nearby here, and I got a spot in the DIY exhibition area, so I'm going to go show that off for a few days on during that event, which should be fun. I think I'm happier with the purple eggs. They just kind of pop a little bit better. Just give them a little shininess. That way they kind of stick out. But I'd like to get back to that teaching site. I was really developing it a couple of years ago and kind of put it on hold. It's fully functional. It's all there. It's just I've got a lot more I'd want to do with it. But as an artist, I really suck at marketing, so I don't know if you've heard, artists are usually pretty terrible at that. But the idea behind it is to have it be a more kind of targeted development process than your typical teaching site. So that's kind of the intent. So the idea is be able to have like a series of courses that give you tutorials and projects to help you develop your skills into an actual portfolio. And rather than it just being a bunch of courses on different subjects. Because I've taught so many things at the schools I've been at, and my own experiences with doing things, that I kind of feel like I have a unique point of view that could let me do that differently than, say, your average art teacher does. So, but yeah, this camper conversion of my truck has been like my major project the last 3 years, and I was researching it the 2 years before that pretty extensively. It became a major thing. And sucked up all of my time and energy into it. No regrets, though. It was fun, but I need to make sure I'm not making it be my entire life the rest of my life. I think get into using it. Did a couple of good camping trips this summer. Yeah, I guess it's a good way to relax, right? To have something different. I think it also kind of helps me at least expand my thinking. So actually, I'm using this truck project this semester in a way in my classes, because they have to build an expedition vehicle as part of one of their projects. And so, because of the expertise I have from doing this one, it can help with that. Plus, I was thinking, maybe kind of finalizing this portfolio project. So, but the thing is, like, the problem that it kind of created for me, not really a problem, just kind of got in the way of my other art projects, was that it requires really intense focus. So when I'm working on it, once I'm done the day working on it, I don't have a lot of room in my head for anything else. I call it decision fatigue, because I'm trying out so many new things, and there's so many things to coordinate in a real world project like that, that it makes it really, really challenging to do anything else once you're done with that for the day, without significant rest. So when I was working on it, it was the only thing I was doing. So I'd spend the initial time period was for the first time I did the build was like almost 3 months straight with no breaks, every single day. One summer break. For the first build, and then I did it again last year in the summer, before I moved to where I'm living now, and then I spent I think about 3 weeks this summer finishing off most of what I wanted to finish. So, but it's pretty nice. Like these wood pieces, these come from that build. So it's got like Brazilian cherry, mahogany, and walnut. So I use these for cabinet faces and for the tabletops inside of the build. So it looks really, really nice in there. There's a few things I need to finish kind of cleaning up and organizing a little bit, but nothing I can't save for a later date. Yeah, well, this is part of my desk now. I got a big drafting table. This is slipping away. There we go. A big drafting table, and I put a big piece of metal on it. So these all have magnets in them, and I can just drop these down wherever, and they're not going to fly around to stick to it. I had a smaller magnet thing that I had on there before, but found a company nearby that sells metal and ordered a sheet that fits this table exactly. When did I start? I mean, I went to school for illustration. I'm not an animator, sadly, but or maybe I'm happy about that. I'm not sure. But so I went to school for illustration. I graduated in 2004, and then I went to grad school for painting in 2008 in New York. So it's kind of my background. I worked in illustration studio and games in the mid-late 2000s. I've done freelance for games here and there ever since. Mostly teaching, though, is what I do. But I've taught, different places since then. Including SCAD and when they had a campus in Hong Kong. So I can't really recommend SCAD as a good place to work. I don't know what the student experience is like, but it wasn't a fun place to be as a teacher. And I was at Ringling up until a little over a year ago. Down in Florida. They're a really good school. Very expensive, but they are a very, very good school. They have a lot of really great teachers there. And then now I'm in Virginia, up north. So This thing keeps slipping. Stay up. Keeps drifting down. Let's see, let's loosen that up and get that in there a little tighter. Yeah, so I've been around the block a couple times, different places. But I also grew up that way, so. Well, this actually isn't Procreate. This is Infinite Painter. Kind of getting blown out there, but it does some things differently than the other apps do that I like. So I've taken to mostly working in it over the last few years over Procreate. I like Procreate, but I also think I like this one a bit more. Actually, my very first painting program was Corel Painter, which used to be really, really popular, but you don't see it as much anymore as people's preferred painting. I really had some stability issues. It doesn't really have as much anymore, but it kind of scared people off from it when it would crash and turn your work into a neon pattern and corrupt your files. Yeah, so this is called Infinite Painter. Again, it does some different things that Procreate doesn't do and other apps don't do as well. So again, it's one of the reasons I kind of switched over to this one. Does some similar things too, but it kind of has its own unique things that I like over other things. So, but you know, like in Procreate, you can paint in 3D, right? So you can import a 3D model and paint over it, which you can't do in this one. And in Procreate you can import Photoshop brushes, which you can't do here, so you have to make your own brushes. So they have a lot that it comes with. But like one of my brushes I like in here is this one where you can draw shapes. I'll darken that up. You can draw shapes like that. Clip Studio has a similar brush, but in this one you can add textures to them too, which you can't do in Clip Studio. So that's just one example of many. Yeah, so one to say go just fill in shadows, just draw the shadow shape I want. Lighten it up a little bit. And this one's free to try, so it has like some limited features you can get when you download it. And it works on Android and iOS, so you don't just have to use an iPad, you could use an Android device. The other thing I like doing with this one too is I've got this inking set that I do want to finish and sell eventually, but you can do like your screen tones with it really nicely. I don't think it works on the computer. I think he was talking about doing that, but I don't think that's ever happened. But it does work on, like, you know, phones and tablets and all of that. I think it's missing some features in Android, if I recall. I don't remember exactly, but check their website. But I do love this shape drawing brush. It kind of reminds me, I used to do kind of detailed illustrations in Infinite Painter, in Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator. So kind of, you know, overlapping shapes to get different effects. That was a long time ago, but it was something I was crazy enough to do. For the technique for that, again, part of it, I think I was showing it before you were here, but this is kind of the approach here. Let's see, so that's right, I changed the background color to white for that other thing. Let's turn that back down to gray. Basically, I roughed in actually some photo textures in here too. There's a little bit of like stuff I've taken pictures of and roughed in here. But I rough in the color kind of like that. And then I go back and paint. I'm kind of sort of designing while I'm painting here as well. But so I kind of rough in what I generally want, and then I think about what's the color of the light, and then what are the things influencing each other in the scene. And that kind of helps me determine where to go with the color. So it's really about how, you know, color functions inside of the space for me. Keep that in shadow. And the colors I used are based off of, you know, my own experiences, you know, painting and doing landscape painting in the forest. Kind of being, and then thereby, you know, kind of being familiar with how light works in general, and then seeing how it works in the real world. So that's kind of how I handle the colors, not like some secret technique. It's how does it actually work, which I think gets me better results overall. For what I want. Obviously, you know, there's different kinds of ways of coloring for stylization and expression, but if I'm looking mostly just to show the scene, then this works really, really well for me. I don't know if that answers or is the answer you were looking for, but that's kind of how I think through things. So part of what it does for me is, well, yeah, that's the struggle. What this method does for me specifically is it kind of puts me in the scene. So I have to actually think about what it's like being there. I think that usually the biggest area where students struggle with light is understanding the different parts of the light. And there's 5 main ones, which you can see here. There's other ones as well, but there's 5 main ones. If you get the 5 down really well, and you can work consistently with them, you'll get a good result. If you get the other ones in there, it kind of sweetens the sauce. Yeah, the 5 main parts of the light, it's the highlight, a halftone or midtone, and terminator, which sometimes people call a core shadow, but that's not quite accurate, I think. It works well enough most of the time, but it's not really what's really happening. And there's form shadow. So if you got highlight, mid or halftone, terminator is kind of where the shadow starts on the form. And then there's the form shadow, and then there's the cast shadows that are on the ground. So if you can separate those out from each other, especially grouping the shadows and the lights separately from each other, the image will read really well. And if you can get the edge quality down, so the way that the form turns on the surface, so the way this turns, or there's a sharper edge or a softer edge, that'll make it feel like the object itself. So if you can do those 2 things, you can render pretty believable images pretty consistently. Even if you're doing line work. And then if you understand how color works, that's a different animal. But color follows certain patterns within those areas of light. So, there's it's called the local color, which is like the color of the object in normal circumstances. In 3D, they call that the base color. So if you open up a 3D application, you can select the base color of an object in comparison with the lights that are in the scene. I appreciate that. Is Cole someone I know? It's always hard to tell here on Instagram with people's usernames. Anything good on here? And in terms of working on one layer, like I'm doing here, often what I'll do is I try to kind of finish, kind of try to get everything in I want, and then I'll try to finish kind of going from front to back, and then I'll work from back to front, and then do that like one more time. And that usually will get me to a good finish by focusing on that rather than chasing a bunch of things around. I know what I'll put on this. So that's kind of another little strategy I have. Yeah, so again, it's one, even if I'm doing a multi-layered thing, I'll kind of work from front to back. And these are all things that I kind of, the way I think about light, the way I kind of work through a picture. It really helps me think about the form and imagine it as if it's a real space. And the more that I can do that, usually the better the results are for me. Other people have different ways of working, but I usually find for myself that really, really helps a lot to kind of make it feel believable. I don't know if it's the fastest way of working or not, but it does help me make it feel more believable that way. Yeah, so that kind of helps me with the details, right? Because the most details are usually going to be in the front, unless you've got it blurred out. Usually most details are kind of in the middle, like right here. But if we're kind of working from front to back, it really helps me. The other thing I like to do is kind of mostly finish something. And I call that kind of calibrating myself, or finding like a key thing to focus on. Yeah, so those are like little things that I found that are beneficial, at least to me. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Thank you over there, Resurrect, over on the YouTube side of things. Yeah, me too. Good evening. Oh, that cup's empty. afternoon, everybody popping in. Good afternoon. I got some Chinese over there. Sadly, words I don't understand. Moisi. Oh, Japanese. I mean, it's Chinese characters. Nihongo ga wakarimasen. Though I have been to Japan. Back when I lived in Hong Kong. So it was a very close flight. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Yeah, this thing just keeps drifting. Stay up there. Hello. Oh, this is something we've been working on. I haven't been working on it on stream, but been working on a little creature design project. So I did a bunch of let's see, further down, thumbnails like that. and then select from those, and did these, and then turn around, and then this is the illustration I'm doing is doubling as kind of a paint up of them and a life cycle. So you see the way the creature kind of makes itself happen in here, and kind of all got it plugged into one thing. It's part of that overall project I've been working on, and what it kind of does, it gives me, I'm looking for like a predator kind of creature as part of that project, and so this is one of them. There's some music outside. This is being done up in Infinite Painter. What is that? Like a life cycle? Just like, you know, how there's the adults, there's the babies, there's in between. Oh, Infinite Painter. It's an app on the iPad, iPhone. It's also on Android. Though I think if I remember correctly, it doesn't have everything on Android that it has on the iPad. But it does some unique things, like you can draw with shapes, which you can do in like Clip Studio Paint. This you can also add textures to it, which is really handy. So like I've got my little inking kit here, and so if you wanted to use, I created a brush that does the what do they call it, the screen tones. So I'm gonna zoom in. You can see there's the screen tones. So it does that. It has some unique kind of perspective tools. It has some other things in here that are kind of interesting. It's got like this webby brush. Where'd it go? And so this brush kind of forms little webs that form back and forth on each other. So it does some unique things. I think you can get that one in Krita, but it has some other kind of perspective things that are really, really neat that I like. So I tend to use this one more than I use Procreate. The other thing that's nice too is that when you draw, like hard to draw, let's see, let's put a thicker line on there. I like the shortcuts for changing brush size too, where you use 3 fingers to go up and down, left and right to go change the opacity. But if I were to draw like a complex curve like this, it snaps into a curve like it would in Procreate. But in this one, if you tap on the stroke, you can edit it. So I can change it, I can get rid of points. You can change it to a corner. You know, move things around whatever shape you want. So it does some unique things in here that I like over other apps that I've used. I was making a brush set for inking in here, which I should kind of finish and then release. Um, so yeah, so again, it's just a lot of unique stuff. It used to be a little more buggy. I haven't really seen it crash in a while. I think there was an update earlier this year. It used to like crash once in a while, but I haven't really seen that recently as much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Mostly this week. Maybe 8, 7, 8 hours, something like that. There's really not that much detail in it. If I zoom in all the way, I'll probably do a detail pass once we get to the past a certain point on here. It was for my little concept project, so I might use this for something. Been working on some creature designs for a larger project. So I did some thumbnails, and then kind of some details over ones that I picked, and then some turnarounds, and then this is kind of illustrations working as both a kind of what they look like, but also a life cycle. That's kind of a larger portfolio project that I've been working on for a while. So I have like a little production list that I'm working through, and this definitely fits into that category. I like them both depending on what I'm doing. I'm currently working in one layer, and thought I'd give it a, I haven't done that in a while, so I thought I'd do that for a number of things. So it just depends, but yeah, it's just one layer today. What is your preference? Sometimes I'll do a mix thing where it's like foreground is one layer and midground is another, and whatnot. Sometimes it's a lot of layers, but yeah. Especially if you need to edit, for sure you're gonna need to edit certain things. It's a good idea. That can happen. Yeah, it's a lot of times when people look at artists, they think, oh, you can draw whatever, so obviously you can work in any style you want. But it's not always true. Some people are versatile, but most people aren't that versatile. They can vary a little bit, but it can be really hard to jump into somebody else's style too much. Yeah. But again, a lot of people, they don't get it. They just think, oh, you make art, therefore you make all kinds of art, and that's just not how things work at all. It's specialized a lot most of the time. Yeah. Like, well, I like this. And you're like, well, that's fine, but that's not what I do. Maybe you should talk to that person. Yeah. Well, Leyendecker. Yeah, I know you're talking about J.C. Leyendecker. He's pretty great. I don't work in his style, but it's definitely a popular one. This program is called Infinite Painter. It does some things that other programs don't, which is one of the reasons I like what it does. So, because I know most people use Procreate. Got really good marketing. It's a really good app too, but this one definitely does unique things, has unique tools in it. time. All right, half an hour, and then I got to take my dog out for his afternoon WALK. My pleasure. It's got some unique brushes in here. You've seen me been using like these solid fill brushes. Clip Studio has something similar, but in this one you can also put textures on them, which I really like. Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, the dog just got up to let me know it's almost time. Still got 15 minutes, but or so. A little more forgiving than the hand rendering, I suppose. I am working on one layer though, so. Let's see. I think mostly I prefer using real media, but I like to keep up with the digital stuff. And it's kind of partially, I teach digital drawing and painting and things like that pretty often, so it's important for me to use it often enough. So I've been working on some new portfolio pieces. I have like a very specific production list I've been working through, and so this fits within those. I think once I get done with that list, I'll be ready for some other things. I'll be working on that comic thing I've been doing tonight as well. Once I get done with taking the dog out in a few minutes and having some dinner, hopefully be back on that tonight. So, and I'm experienced in a lot of different media. Mustat RU, huh? Ruski разведчик среди нас сегодня. hope that's been some good progress. Go ahead and call it there for this afternoon. I'll probably be back in a bit working on that, penciling that page. But thanks everybody that came in. Catch you next time.